Welcome to the Mom and podcast. We're your hosts, Suzanne Kearns
and Missy Stevens. We want to help you through everything that happens in the ellipses, from your professional life to your emotional health.
You're a mom and so much more. Let's figure out what comes next together. Welcome to the Mom and podcast. I'm Suzanne Kearns. I'm a mom and writer, LGBTQ ally, and this week a tennis camp chauffeur. What is a tennis champ chauffeur? Spell check was
You might be
supposed to help
chauffeuring
me.
A tennis champ. You don't know.
I know. No, he is not. He has no intention.
You never know. I'm Missy Stevens. I'm a mom and writer, child advocate, and today, carrot harvester. We have enough carrots to put in our salad for dinner with some supplement from some store-bought carrots.
Okay, photos to prove it.
Yes, they're so cute. They're very cute. Today, we are thrilled to have Mecca Brown from Plan to Slay on the show. Mecca Brown is the founder of Career on Fire, a program that empowers women across the country to get clear about their career goals. After working through the program, they elevate their visibility to potential employers and have the confidence to see themselves in more fulfilling roles. Mecca is an expert at it and will walk you through the process every step of the way. When she's not being a busy bee at work, Mecca can be found with her family, enjoying a movie, visiting a foodie destination, or getting away for vacation. She is also into all things nerd, Beyonce, or movie related. Thank you for being here today.
I am your quintessential mom, I have a lot of dots behind, a lot of ellipses there.
Yes.
Perfect.
That is exactly why we wanted to have you here. And we were really excited when our friend Allison Tedford, hopefully listeners remember her, we interviewed her in episode 13 about her book, Chronic Profit, and she hooked us up. But for some of our listeners who aren't familiar with you or Plan to Slay or Career on Fire, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to developing this program?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on the show. I am so grateful to be here. And Allison is my bestie. I love her dearly. So when she tagged me, it was just a match made in heaven to partner with you all. So thank you so much for that. But if I love stories. So if I can take you back a little bit, you know, my journey is non-traditional. I was a teen mom. I had gotten a full paid scholarship to a top 10 university, UCSD, and then found out I was pregnant. And so kind of needed to support my family while I went to school. And I found that although I went to a great high school and I was going to a great college, I was still struggling to find work that would pay me a living wage to support my children. I wound up working at the Career Services Center at UCSD while going to school. And my original role is just to answer the phones, but I'm a fast learner. And so my office manager put me in charge of the graduating seniors and walking them through their senior program, how they write their resume, write their cover letter, and go through interviewing skills. And although the career counselors were the ones who were leading those discussions with the graduating seniors, it was my job to make sure that they were tracked along the way. So I got to sit in and listen to a lot of the education that was being used. For those of you who are Generation X, and some of us who are baby boomers, you may remember the book, What Color's Your Parachute? That was a favorite career service.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they've made it every year. And so eventually I wound up entering the workforce full time, and I began utilizing the skills that I learned while I was at Career Services Center to advance my career. If you think about some of the obstacles a person like me could face, I was a teen mom. I was a college dropout at the time because I had to work full time to support that child in California in the 90s. It was expensive, still is.
Yeah.
I'm an African American. I'm a woman, and I was plus size. So I had a lot of, and I was young. So, you know, young people have the perception of being flighty, having no work ethic, those types of descriptions. So there were a lot of labels that were slapped on my forehead before I ever opened my mouth. And I had to figure out a way to traverse those and advance my career. I knew advancement was the way to make more money. And so I studied the industry. I would read a lot of books from authors who offered perspectives on how to advance your career. I would talk to human resources. I'd talk to my boss. I'd find a mentor anywhere I could to learn nuggets of information, and I would write it down. And I just built my own career strategy, career path program. Right around the time I turned 30, I was making about $60,000 a year, which is pretty great considering where statistically I should have been as a teen mom. And so I realized that there were a lot of young people coming behind me who were walking the same struggle. And I started helping them. I come from a family of women who believe in education and each one teach one, reach back, help the community, starting from my great grandmother all the way down to myself, my mom. And so I decided, excuse me, that's the dog. So I decided to start helping others, learn my path. And I did that for several years and watched others flourish, not only with me or equal to me, but in some cases, I helped people flourish and advance past, my level of success at that time. And then I came across this great life coach who I would go to Asheville, North Carolina to have a retreat. And she said, you got to stop giving it away for free. You can absolutely save the world. I know you're a superhero, you want to save the world, but you can also make this a business so you can reach more people and support yourself while you support others. And that's what led me about 12 years ago to officially become a career coach and launch Mecca Brown Career Coaching, which eventually led to Plan to Slay. And my latest invention, which is Career on Fire. Career on Fire is literally a club that helps mentor women. Women know how to write resumes. They know how to write the cover letters, and they know how to interview based on what they were taught in high school or college. But all of that is outdated. I have a program that brings in mentors every week where we tell you the latest and greatest information. We bring in recruiters and hiring managers and experts in dozens of fields so that you are always getting the latest and greatest information to help you build your strategy similar to the way I built mine. That's it.
Oh, I love that so much. As someone who's been largely out of the workforce, I've worked, but I haven't really gone out there and looked for a job in the traditional way in a while. I'm so overwhelmed by how different things are. The last time I sent out bulk resumes, they were on paper, folded in a letter-sized envelope with a stamp. And since then, I have found my jobs. I've been fairly fortunate to find them through word of mouth and have changed things without having to go through that whole search. But I know that at any time I could have to go through that, and I don't know how to do it. And I'm so glad to know you exist.
I know. Thank you. I mean, you're changing lives. I mean, really.
Yes. Well, we all need seats at the table, right? That is how we're going to change our country and make it better. So I'm going to use a nerd reference. Remember, I love story. One of my favorite phrases is always, we're praying for Star Trek, but preparing for Skynet, right? So we always hope for the best, but we know the machines could take over at any time. It could all just crash and burn.
Yep.
And so in order for us to get to that Star Trek or that ideal, country that we want to be, we need as many diverse individuals at the table as possible. And so I'm just trying to find the pocket of individuals who need the most support and help give them the tools that they need so that they can succeed and get at the table. And in some cases, if they can't get to the table, they need to freaking build their own. We don't have to always seat ourselves at someone else's table. Sometimes we build our own and bring our own community and tribe to that table. Multiple tables is what it's going to take to change our country, the environment, the politics, the health and wellness and education and the financial structure of our country. So I'm doing my part. I will never run for office. I cuss way too much. Love the F word. So you will never see me run for office, but I am perfectly comfortable sitting behind the scenes, helping to push and propel other women to greatness and having them sit at those tables.
I've already had my butterfly moment for this show. Like I get the butterflies every show for something. I love hearing about bringing all of these diverse women to the table to make change. Oh, so exciting.
Because we've heard so many stories. Gosh, was it Suzanne Brown when we were talking to her about the percentage of women that leave the workforce because they feel like they don't have any other options, especially with COVID and some of the challenges financially. And so there's women who feel like they need to leave the workforce because they don't have any other options for, building their own table if they need to. Right. But then I think there's other women who maybe they did step aside to, take care of children or take care of an aging parent and are wanting to get back in, but they're probably losing out on some opportunities because they don't know all those tips. They're probably mailing in some resumes without thinking that it has to get scanned by. If you don't have like the perfect keywords and if it's not totally scannable and that it doesn't get through that, the gatekeeper is no longer a secretary with with an envelope opener. It is It is a computer that's shooting through, I'm sure, thousands of these resumes a minute. Right. And if you miss that, then you miss your opportunity to be at that table. So, oh, so excited. And, they're from the big picture and just finding your path and helping women with that. I mean, I feel like I could talk to you all day about that. I
Yes.
know that we have sent you a list of some of the questions that we wanted to talk
I
about, and they were
have
really they were more nuts and bolts and nitty gritty, but I don't know. I still want to be so big
know.
picture with you, but we have promised our listeners that we are going to do some of the nitty gritty too. So maybe we can kind of blend a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But I attended a great conference a couple of weeks back called I Relaunch. And it was a
love
virtual.
her. I follow her. Yes.
Yes, she's going to be a guest actually in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So excited to talk to her too about helping. Her focus is not specifically women. It's just
No.
anybody who's been out of the
Yeah.
career field for multiple years,
Mhm.
trying to be able to relaunch back into the workforce. But one of the questions a lot of our listeners had was like, well, why do I need to bother with LinkedIn? I'm not looking for a job. It's just, that's something that you just put, it's like having a resume that you walk around with. But coming out of that conference, I definitely came out with like, no, it is never too early to start on your LinkedIn and make sure that you have that foundation built. So I would love to hear kind of your philosophy on LinkedIn. If
Yeah.
someone's just sitting there with no plan in the world to start looking for a job right now, what should they have in their LinkedIn? What can they be using it for right now?
Yes. Love that. And what did I tell you I was? I'm a storyteller.
Yes.
So past 2005, so we're in 2021. I have never had to apply for a position cold. I have always either had a recruiter seek me out or a hiring manager seek me out for an opportunity for advancement. And so how did that happen? Well, internally, people get to know you and your reputation. And one of the things that I teach in my service model is about building your influence, your professional brand at work. But LinkedIn is your dating profile, it's your employment profile, if you will, that shares with the world who you are. And just like with dating profiles, people say, oh, I don't want to be online. I don't want to do online dating. It's scary. And then there are people who go for it and are gung ho. LinkedIn is very much has the same similar fear. So there are people who are afraid to put their information on LinkedIn because they are afraid that they will be judged. Right? Not judged for their looks, but judged for their work experience. Do they have the right education? Do they have the right experience? Did they stay too long in this job? Did they stay too long in this role? And so it's the same fear and judgment of putting your dating profile online that same emotion translates to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But if you don't, no one will find you. If you don't, it makes it more difficult for you to, one, rank advance quickly and within your industry and advance. So I tell everybody, get a LinkedIn. Even if you are not working right now, get a LinkedIn and keep it together. Word of mouth is so important. You have no idea who's looking for someone who's exactly like you. We have this vision that everybody is the same. Employers want this cookie cutter boxed type of employee. And for years, that was the message that was sold. But we live in a world where information changes minute by minute. We know that. We see it in the news. We have apps that change our perspective in a moment's notice. So we can't have everybody fitting in a box if the world is dynamic and constantly changing. Therefore, we need all of those dynamic people listed in one tool so that when someone needs to find your special secret sauce, they have a direct tool they can use to find you. So put your stuff on LinkedIn, sis. That's where you need to be.
So now again, so what kind of information, and in particular, I know that LinkedIn has now just recently added these designations for stay-at-home type of fields that you can choose. I know that
was my question.
Yeah, I saw that.
That has been, I think, a real hesitancy for a lot of women who are stay-at-home moms for extended period of time to do a LinkedIn, because you're like, well, what am I going to put? That I changed this many diapers, or I took this kid to tennis lessons today. But that came out of that same I Relaunch conference was that even for women who think that is actually a bad thing, that there are specific employers who are filtering and looking for that and find that very appealing. So are you seeing that as well? Is that your recommendation?
So yes, but there are no black and whites with LinkedIn, and there are no black and whites when it comes to having gaps in your resume. Okay. There, depending on where you live, the industry you are in
Mm.
and the amount of time you were gone, that gap can help you, be neutral to you, or it can hurt you. It's just the truth. I've seen folks who have struggled to deal with that gap who live in the South, the southern states, because that gap is still seen as a negative against women for choosing family over career, right? I've seen, in some of the Midwest and Eastern states, women being penalized because you put your family over career. And then I've seen in other states where it's totally open, accepted, the employers are looking exactly for that. I've seen employers who look for those type of workers to almost exploit them, because they recognize that someone coming back in to the workforce is probably going to work 2 times as hard because they have twice as much to prove. And, you can bring them in and get a little bit more work out, horsepower out of them. And so there is no clear-cut answer to whether or not you should use this. What I say is talk to your career coach about that type of information in your situation. Some of my recommendations would be, how long were you gone? If you were gone a couple of years, that gap isn't going to hurt you. Unless you're someone who's in the tech industry, tech field, and your industry has gone through a huge disruption or change. If you've been gone 5 years, we may need to restructure that. We may need to actually put that designation in your LinkedIn profile and talk about some of the things that you did. Were you a stay-at-home mom, or were you homeschooling your children? Were you building curriculum? Were you doing, because then we can layer in some of your project management skills that you utilize. We can layer in some of your organization skills into that description so that that chunk of time has an explanation, but that explanation shows that you didn't lose any of your skill sets. You actually continue to use them, and in some cases advance them. So it really, and especially if you were a teacher, or someone who was a trainer, or someone who was a business analyst or a project manager role, then that transition makes sense. So it really depends on what your industry is, how long you were gone, where you live, and some of the employers you're interested in, and that's going to determine whether or not it helps you, it's neutral to you, or it hurts you. And that's just the truth. Anyone who tells you, no, it's never gonna, you never have to worry about it. It's 2021. You can totally have a gap and everybody's okay with you. It's doing you a disservice. That's just simply not true. You still have older generations who have that mindset in positions of power. They have taught that mindset to the generation below them, and they are in positions of power. So it depends on the dynamics that are present for your circumstances and where you want to be.
So now we had a listener submit a specific question, and I was thinking of it more around the resume area, but it probably applies to both resumes and LinkedIn. So she said the industry I previously worked in is obsolete. Paging and telecommunications. Pagers, yes. I have a college degree. How can I sell myself to employers when all of my work experience is so far in the past? So not only is there this gap, but even the experience that you would think of as work experience isn't necessarily something that's relevant today. So how do you work around that?
So the model that I teach is called the Keys to Success, and keys is spelled KEI, which is knowledge, experience, and influence. And it is a triangle, and that is how you advance in your career. You need 2 legs to advance reasonably fast. And if you have all 3 legs, you can advance quickly. You can skyrocket. One of the challenges that people run into is that experience piece. They're like, but we were in pagers, no one pages anymore. Well, one, hospitals, I've worked in hospitals, worked directly with hospitals, we still page everybody. You can have a cell phone, but we're still paging. But let's set that aside for a moment. Your skill set wasn't paging. What was your skill set? You had to organize meetings. You had to organize projects. When a new customer came in, you had to, gather the customer's business requirements and gather, the size of the organization and the number of units they would need and the bandwidth. You had a list of skills that you used on a regular basis to build that. And the skills are what employers are looking for. So the challenge with resumes that I see when I do resume audits is so often people put their work assignments, what they did, but they don't use metrics and they don't focus on the skills. And so when you don't do that, as the young folks say, as our kids would say, you don't have your receipts. I need to see your receipts, right?
Yeah.
What are your receipts? Where's your proof of your skills and your capabilities and how you help that organization? So I can take a resume and somebody who had a role that at a company where the company and the industry may be obsolete, but the skills utilized weren't. It's the skills that transfer. And that's what I would tell her to focus on. I know somebody said they had a degree in English. Well, there's a belief that it's one of those junk or throwaway degrees. It depends on how you use it. Do you know how often we are in meetings where there are people who need writers for SOPs or PMPs, depending on what your industry calls them, people who need to write regulatory requirements. They need somebody with project management skills and writing skills, you know? So even that degree that is deemed a throwaway degree, or even that industry that is obsolete, can be transferred to real-time, real-life positions. You just have to have the right verbiage to do that. And it takes sitting down and really looking at your receipts. Not, I was a person responsible for getting everybody their pagers, but what skills did you employ every single day? Let's get those skills on your resume, and let's make those skills searchable on LinkedIn and on your resume, so that when employers are looking for somebody with those skills, they know who to call.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of something Morgan Seaman, who has been on the show recently, was talking about repackaging your skill set.
Yes.
Instead of thinking about it in kind of the old terms we used to use, or thinking about our parenting skills, not as parenting skills, but as marketable business skills, and just giving them a name. She calls that turning it into your superpowers. And I love that concept a lot. There's a lot that we have to offer. You need a coach. I think, I mean, we're coming to that more and more, that people really do need a coach who understands the current environment and can find the right words.
The president has a coach. Football teams have a coach. Football coaches have coaches. Tennis players have coaches. Musicians have coaches. Everybody needs somebody who understands their field and their goal and their dreams, who understands how the game is played, whether it's a physical game or, you know, the rules from an industry perspective, who can help guide you to greatness. There is no person who has ever achieved greatness who did not have a mentor or a coach behind them. There just isn't, you know, so you want that. But the challenge people have is they don't know the words to use, right? So their question is, okay, well, great. Yeah, I know I need to have transferable skills. You're not telling me anything new. How do I write that? Well, that's somebody, you need somebody who's an expert. You know, I speak English, I speak Spanish. I don't speak a lick of Japanese. If I needed to translate my information, my resume into Japanese for somebody, I would go to somebody who spoke the language. So when you are struggling with your resume and you say, I know that I can transfer these skills and I can use it to fill in these gaps and to show that I'm still marketable in today's market for my industry, you need somebody who speaks that language and can help translate for you, or you learn how to speak the language yourself, right?
Right.
So I'm a person who believes in DIY. So I give folks free resources all the time. They could go out and try to do it themselves, or they can come to me and pay for my service. It really just depends on what level and how quickly they want to move. Learn the language or go to somebody to translate for you. And then when you talk about those superpowers, you know, you weren't just a mom, like, and I say just a mom facetiously, obviously, but you know, were you leading PTA meetings? Because honey, I've been on the PTA. It isn't easy. Were you leading Girl Scout troops? You know, what were the things that you were doing? Those skills transfer over really, really well. And I think where people get stuck is they're like, well, I don't want to put that I was a Girl Scout troop mom and I made sure that we baked brownies and met our cookie goals, because then it sounds simplified, right? But instead, what we do is we say, okay, well, what did you do? What metrics were set? What plan did you create to ensure that you met the metrics? What observation steps did you have along the way, and toll gates did you put in place throughout your plan to make sure you met those metrics? Like that's the language that you pull in to say how you sold the 5,000 boxes of cookies in 3 weeks. You probably rang my doorbell. As you can tell, I definitely have the body of the Girl Scout cookie chick.
We have never turned a Girl Scout away at our house. Never.
Right, exactly. You know, I've seen them. I was like, God, please, the prayers, baby Jesus, precious sweet baby Jesus, the manger, do not let them ring my doorbell again today, because I will buy the cookies. But you can translate those skills. You just need someone to help you translate, or you need to learn how to speak the language of resume and write it yourself.
And so when you say speak the language, I mean, this is a pretty literal speak the language. I mean, there are keywords people need to be aware of that programs are actively searching for, and your resume needs to be written in a way that maybe, you know, it doesn't sound as beautiful and poetic as if you had written it the way you wanted to, but to a computer who's scanning for certain words, it's perfect. That's what's going to get it noticed, and that's what's going to get you to the next step.
And yeah, and that's called the ATS, which is the applicant tracking systems that medium and large size employers use. Believe it or not, for the small based employers, there's still somebody opening an envelope or still somebody going online to download your resume from like monster.com, right? So there's still the secretary with her little glasses, at the small. But if you're looking for a medium or large size employer, they're using an ATS. Why? Because they have to protect themselves against discrimination. How do you prove that you are not systematically excluding women, systematically excluding LGBT, systematically excluding African American or Latino American applicants? How do you prove that?
That's fascinating.
You need a tool. So your tool says, I only want to see applicants who meet this criteria. Well, how do I do that? We deploy an algorithm. The algorithm says, did they answer these 4 or 5 questions? Give them a ranking, give them points for that. And then it looks for these other keywords that represent the type of work the hiring manager is looking for. And it ranks everybody. So it says, okay, we're going to get about 2,000 applicants for this position. Rank everybody based on their keyword usage and the way they answered these 4 or 5 questions. And sometimes it's 10, each employer is different. But how did they answer these 4 or 5 questions? And did they have the magical keywords? Let's assign them a point value. The hiring manager and the recruiter do not have time to interview 2,000 people. They don't have time to interview 200 people. They don't have time to interview 20 people. So if they get 2,000 applications, 10% of that is 200 and 1% is 20. So if they barely can get to 20 applicants, as an example, that's 1%. That means we've got to exclude 99% of the applicants. How do I do that without racial, gender, religion, political, sexual orientation bias being levied against me as an organization? I use an ATS system. So the very thing that's used to protect the employer makes it that much more challenging for us to get through. We've got to be strategic about how we present ourselves so that we can make it through the door and land on that recruiter's desk so that recruiter can even look at our resume and say, I want to give this girl a call and see if she's exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
You kind of answered a question when you were talking about the percentages that actually get through. I was thinking as you were talking, like, how many people land a job this way? It seems really daunting to me. And I always say I have a butterfly moment every show. I also today had a oh crap moment. Like I could feel it in my chest. It was tightening. And like, how many people really are finding a job if you're lucky to have less than 1% of the resumes even go to the recruiter?
So that's a great question. And one of the things that I do with Career on Fire is I'm constantly speaking to recruiters, right? Because their performance is based on how quickly they close these roles, right? So if they're closing them with great applicants who stay and benefit the employer, hey, they get their bonus, or, they get their promotions.
Yeah.
And so when you talk to them, here are the challenges. If I went to look for a job today, I would have to apply to 10 or 15 different roles. So I show up on 10 or 15 different recruiters' ATS tracking tools because I've applied. So how do you get to 2,000 people? Well, it's multiple people applying all across, the country. So you can have 1 million jobs open and you can have 5 million people out of work, but those 5 million people are not applying to one job. They are applying to multiple. And so it just inflates the numbers. And you've got to have a way that has zero discrimination that allows people to stack rank and make it through. What I tell people is you have to tweak your resume to make you the MVC, most valuable candidate. It's my favorite phrase. How do you do that? You focus on what they say they want, not what you offer. It ain't about you. It's about them. So what are they looking for in their job description? And you tailor your resume to your industry and to those job descriptions without having to write a new resume every day, because I do not subscribe to that. There's methods you can employ where you're using similar keywords and similar key verbs to demonstrate that you are appropriate for multiple positions.
That's a great idea. So yeah, part of me was like, ooh, I want to know specifically what keywords should I be using? And I'm sure just like one of your answers before, it depends. It depends which job you're going for. It depends which field. It depends all this. Yeah. And I know you have some great posts on your website specifically around keywords and a lot of these subjects. So we will put links to those in the show notes so people can kind of go read those.
My resume resource, if you'd like, I could send you a link and everybody could get that for free. I offer that for free. It's free on my LinkedIn. If you go to my LinkedIn, it's free on my website. It's free everywhere. So use that because it teaches you how to find those keywords. One of the ways that I teach, and you'll love this, is I have an aggregator where I say, okay, tell me what are your top 5 jobs that you would want to apply for. Like if you could get hired today, go find me 5 job descriptions. And I take those job descriptions and I literally throw them into my aggregator. And it tells me for these 5 job descriptions what the top 10, 20, 30, 40 words were and how often they repeat it. So if all 5 jobs say that they want somebody who has Medicare experience, as an example, I come from healthcare operations as a background. Mm-hmm. Don't you think the word Medicare should be on your resume? Right. Don't you think it should be on LinkedIn? Mm-hmm. So that tool, that free resource that you guys have, teaches you to look for those types of words in that job description. And preferably not just one, but like the top 4 or 5 jobs you'd like to apply for. Look at them and see what words keep jumping out as repetitive and make sure those are in your resume, because those will help you stack, rank, and filter to the top.
Yeah. It's almost like you mimic the language of the job description, right? You're just like,
like when you're mirroring people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You got to be careful because, the latest, we've got those Gen Zs in our house. And so I'm on TikTok with my kids. Love TikTok. And there's a lot of career coaches on there and job search coaches. And there's a lot of bad advice. I saw someone say, take the job description, copy it, make it font 1, make the font color white and paste it in the footer of your resume so that you'll pop. As if the ATS system will not recognize that 100% of the job description is in your resume. So there's a lot of bad advice out there. So you don't want to mimic, you don't want to copy. What you want to do is demonstrate that you have those skills and abilities and experience that they're looking for in your resume, in your own words. So I want you to get to their desk. I want you to get to more interviews, but I want you to get there the right way based on your own receipts and your own documented experience while leveraging the keywords and key skills that they're looking for as well.
That is a really important distinction. See, that's why I need
you could end up in the interview and then not able to back up your own resume would be pretty embarrassing.
Honey, I can get to the interview for, to be an astronaut for NASA, but as soon as I get there and they ask me a question, I can't do it. So you can always cheat to the interview, but when you get to the interview, they're going to ask you specific questions. We have in the club last month, we did, because each month is a different theme. Last month, it was interviewing skills. And so it's funny because, I have a doctor, a lawyer, and then I have 4 people in healthcare operations in one of the different pods that we have. And they all showed up and they said, oh, we got interviewing skills. I know how to interview. And I asked one technical question and they all failed. They all failed. They're like, wait, what? And I'm like, you're so accustomed to, questions that say, tell me about yourself and tell me what your goals are, that you don't realize that recruiters and hiring managers are moving to technical questions. They need people with expertise. The workforce is shrinking. The knowledge base of the workforce is shrinking like crazy. And if employers want to be number one or maintain their position or even advance their position within their industries, they need the best and the brightest. And they can't get that asking you about your feelings and what your goals are. They can get there by asking you what your technical experience is so that they can advance. And so that piece is important because that recruiter and that hiring manager have got to make sure that you know your stuff. They're going to ask you technical questions. And if you can't answer them, they're going to kick you out the door.
Interesting. Very interesting. Oh my gosh.
I feel like we're going to need to have you back on because there are so many questions.
We've just scratched the surface. And
we did. And I talk about this all day. I'm passionate about, people having the right tools in place so that they can advance their career. And I want us to begin to think about our career, not like I only have to do my resume when I want to look for another job. Do you remember a time, and your age is going to answer this question for us, right? Do you remember a time where you didn't even know what your credit score was and you didn't care about credit scores because you didn't know what it was?
Yes.
I'm of that generation where I remember that. They didn't teach it in school. I didn't know what a credit score was.
I'd never heard of it.
who wait, and it wasn't even experience. We didn't have Credit Karma like my kids have today, and they know what their credit scores are, and they're tracking it. But they understood that financial education was key. It was lifelong, and that they needed to monitor their credit even when they weren't trying to buy a house, even when they weren't trying to buy a car, even when they weren't trying to apply for a credit card. You needed to know where you were so that when the time came to buy the house, buy the car, get the credit card, you knew where you stand. The same thing is true for careers. And that's the mission that I'm trying to do, is to get people to change the way they think about their career. It isn't, when it's time for me to apply for a new job, I'll work on my resume, I'll put together all of my experience. No, I want you tracking that all year long. Even if you're happy at your job and you love your boss and you're never, ever going to leave this role because it is the perfect one for you, that's great. Track your information. So that's the mission. Just like you track your credit now, just like we track our finances, we need to track our career. And then when it comes time, because you have your LinkedIn updated and a recruiter happens to search LinkedIn and find that you have the skills that they are looking for and the secret sauce, then they will reach out to you. When they reach out to you, you are prepared to answer their technical questions because you have stayed on top of your information the whole time. Whether you've worked consistently or even if you've had a break because you took time to take care of your children or a sick family member. A lot of us had to take time off to take care of somebody for COVID. Mm-hmm. So we all have these opportunities for breaks and gaps. That does not mean that we can't advance our career. We should always be thinking about career advancement. We should always be thinking about the next step, even when we're happy with the step that we're on.
Right. That is like, ooh. Yes, that makes me so motivated. I actually want to go break out my resume today. So gotta go dust it off.
It makes me really motivated to not be the last time that I was actively looking for a job. And like I said earlier, I ended up finding it through a friend of a friend. But the company that hired me still wanted my resume, and I had to scramble to get it cleaned up. I don't ever want to do that again. No more scrambling.
Yeah. Because you really, it takes some time. You got to go back in time to think about some of those jobs and really think about, what did I do? What were my responsibilities? What were some of those accomplishments? And that is kind of that's one of those things that, like, 2 weeks from now, one of the things might pop in my head in the shower, but they're not going to do that unless I'm actively thinking about it, unless I'm like digging into it. You need to give your brain permission to be thinking about these things so that, they can pop up and you can start keeping track of them.
So a neat trick that I teach my members in my club is, you're not going to remember everything that you went through and all of the, opportunities that you had at your past job, but you know who will? The people you complain to. So I encourage them to say, hey, to call mom or whoever you normally talk to about work. If you have 2 or 3 best friends, or if you are still friends with a past coworker who worked at that company, just shoot them an email or a message and say, hey, I'm trying to think of some of the projects that we worked on when you and I were both at ABC Cosmetics 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And I'm trying to think of what the projects are. Do you remember any challenges we had or projects, or any time we had to do like a couple months of overtime? Like, what were we working on? What do you remember? You'd be surprised how many other people will remember those projects for you, jog your memory, and then you can write it down. So you don't have to do this. We can hive mind this together, right? So think about who those key people are in your life and take some time to ask them those questions and see what they say that jogs your memory, and use that.
Yeah, it's another great reason to start early and do it all the time.
Yeah.
Because you have time to reach out to all of these people. You can't call them on Tuesday night and say, I had to interview on Thursday.
What did we do? What
was my job?
Like 6 months. What was that project?
Yeah.
Yes, so this is our assignment for today. I'm going to go dust off that resume. Oh my gosh.
The fact that it's still a piece of paper collecting dust is scary. At least tell me you have to go find which file it's in.
Yeah, mine is in here somewhere.
You got
it's so old that even the file's dusty. It's not on a floppy disk. I promise it's not on a floppy disk.
not the floppy.
Oh my gosh. So Mecca, there's so much more that, okay, we need to have
Yeah.
you back. I think after this episode runs, we'll accumulate some more questions that people are
Yes.
like, what else? What else? And then we're going to
Yeah.
make you come back. But in the meantime, what is the best way for listeners to reach out to you if they want to get your coaching services or just read some of your amazing articles and get some of your tips?
Yes, I would love if you connected with me on LinkedIn, number one, because that means you have to create a LinkedIn. You see what I did there?
I like it.
And so it's normally just linkedin.com/IN and then / my @ symbol is Mecca M Brown. So MECCA, letter M again, BROWN, and you'll find me. I'm on Instagram at Plan to Slay. So if you're an Instagram person, I post things there. And then if you are a Facebook person, my Facebook is also at Mecca M Brown, and it's Mecca M Brown Career Coaching. So I try to post information in 3 different resources. So whether you're an IG person, a Facebook person, or a LinkedIn person, you're getting the same information. And the biggest thing is to join my club. For me, having a place where you can come in and every week get simple bite-sized assignments that help you advance your career, I think is a lot easier than trying to compile everything when it's on the spot. Kind of like what you were saying, Missy, of, having 2 minutes to get it done,
Yeah.
I've got folks I have pharmacists, doctors, I have lawyers, and I have regular everyday folks who are just trying to make it to subject matter expert or team leader supervisor. I've got, folks who are Gen X and who are millennial. And I even have one who's a baby boomer. I have people who are moms and not moms. I have a Gen Z. I have non-binary. I have men, people in the club. It really is about bringing you together and giving you the right advice. So I would love for folks to join careeronfire.co, excuse me.
.co. Okay, perfect.
All right, we will put all of that in the show notes.
Yeah.
And now, Mecca, we love our Look, Listen, Learn segment where we share something that we've been watching or listening to or learning about this week. So, Mecca, have you been Look, Listen, Learning anything?
Yes, so I did my little 3 L's. So 2 things. One, for the longest time, I tried to stay away from the Handmaid's Tale. I am very political. I am a feminist. I am an ally for the LGBT community. I am, an advocate for disenfranchised people. And I was just not going to watch The Handmaid's Tale. I didn't care how great it was. I was not going to do it. And then I went on puppy watch. My standard poodle was pregnant, so I kind of had to stay by her side. And so I had to watch some TV, and y'all suckered me into watching The Handmaid's Tale, and I'm like in there now, like I am current episode. I binged all the seasons in a week and a half. And so what am I looking at? Handmaid's Tale.
I love it.
We get it.
Yes. I need to come hang out with you because one of our main topics of conversation is how my husband, he just can't even. He cannot even. So we can't binge it. He'll let me have like one, and then we have to go a couple days. He's like, I can't. And I was already through season 3, but I was like, well, I'll watch them with you again. We'll get caught up so we can watch season 4. I'm like, dude, you are taking forever.
You may just need to skip ahead and watch season 4 by yourself because it's almost over.
Yeah.
And I heard they're having a season 5, which I have to tell you, it actually made me mad. I wanted a bow on season 4.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like, we're done with this world that is making me crazy.
The craziness of that, especially with the political environment, the way it is, not even just like in 2020, but even at post-election, our political environment makes me feel like this is not as far-fetched. We already know from the book that everything that has happened in the book has happened to women somewhere around the world in real life. So we already know that the terrible actions are reality, but could all of this exist in America, our utopia? We love this place. Never. And I just don't buy that. They've done a really good job of showing how easily we could slide into this path. So that has been my, that and rewatching all the seasons of Supernatural, just because I love the boys. So those 2 things have been what I've been looking at and loving. And then listening to, I have a business coach I love, Rachel Rogers. She just dropped a book called We Should All Be Millionaires, and it talks about getting women wealth because, again, like me as a career coach, but her focusing on entrepreneurs if women, have seats at the table and control money, then we can change the world. So that's what I've been listening to. And then I started listening to your podcast because I got introduced to you by Allison. So I was like, hey.
Oh, thank you.
I was like, hey, let me listen to it. So I know your personalities and I know who you are.
You still came.
Yeah, you still showed up today.
Because we're like cousins.
I love it.
I feel like that. Like I vibe with you guys. And then what have I been learning? I have been in healthcare operations and working medical for 25 years. One of the chief medical officers at my former employer, Optum, says I have an honorary medical degree because, I will, all the doctors, all the physicians will sit there and make all these medical assessments. I'm like, we can't do that because of this. And I'm the only person who doesn't have a medical degree. So they're like, it used to be hush, shush. And now they're like, well, wait a minute, let's hear what she has to say.
Oh,
So,
yes.
So I have, I know a lot about medical. And then I decided to breed my poodle and have dogs and realize I didn't know nothing. So what I've been learning is medical or veterinary medicine for dogs and raising puppies and puppy culture and badass breeder culture and all these curriculums. You start teaching the puppies from the day they are born certain traits and behaviors so that by the time you hand off this dog to a family home, that dog or that puppy has the right skills and temperament to flourish in that new home. And so it's like a new skill set. So I'm all things dog, what do they eat? What do they, nutrition, medicine, prescriptions, just everything, all things dog. That's what I've been learning. So
are you in a bunch of dog Facebook groups now?
Oh my God. Yes. And I hate Facebook, but nobody does groups that like Facebook, and I know there's Mighty Works and some others, but no one does community like Facebook. So I don't know, Marcus still has me tied into, sorry about all that noise in the background.
I hear a little
doggy trying to get in. Mom's in.
I apologize.
No.
But I love the way they do community. And so I'm probably in like 30 different Facebook groups for different types of dogs, whether they're breeding or golden doodles, just learning and immersing myself in this world. Because, I don't like to half-ass anything. I like to do whatever I do, I want to do it well. And so that's my new education that I've been learning for the past few months.
Thank goodness for Facebook groups. Yeah, my thing was when I was shopping for a hot tub, I got into a bunch of hot tub groups. And I tell you, that's a whole nother world. That is a
and
whole
then
nother world.
I started seeing hot tub stuff, I guess, because I communicate with Suzanne on a lot of things on Facebook. I started seeing hot tub stuff and I'm like, why am I in this? Like, am I in a hot tub club and didn't know it? But I learned a lot of hot tub stuff accidentally.
Yeah. I may have joined you on purpose. I don't know. I think we have probably because we have a group together. I'm sure it links us somehow.
Yeah. It's like, if she wants to see this, you probably want to see it too. So.
We are of one mind.
Yeah.
Well, what have you been listening, learning, Missy?
Okay, well, I have it's sort of funny. It's maybe sort of sad. But when you have teenagers and they want to do something, you want to be all in with them so that you have that shared experience, because sometimes it's hard to find common ground. So my teenager wanted desperately to watch the Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather fight. Does anyone even know what I'm talking about?
I do.
I've heard bits of it.
Okay. So Logan Paul, I now know, this is I learned he's like a YouTube sensation. He makes crazy amounts of money and started, I think, with some sort of Pokemon connection. So maybe Suzanne has a Pokemon Pro at her house. I didn't know who Logan Paul was. I didn't follow Logan Paul. And then, of course, we all know who Floyd is. And I think Floyd Mayweather I may have these numbers wrong, but I believe he was paid $10 million for the fight. Another $30 million for wearing the logos on his shorts.
Yeah.
And I think Logan Paul made significantly less, but still a good chunk of change. So we paid for this fight. We paid $50 to watch it on pay-per-view. I've never paid for anything on pay-per-view in my life. I had a girlfriend from college here visiting, and we all sat around, the five of us sat and watched this fight, which started really late at night. Again, old. And we watched the fight and nobody won. They didn't keep score. And we're pretty sure at some point Logan Paul was knocked out and Floyd Mayweather held him up and got him back, because I think they were paid to not have it be a knockout.
Oh.
I'm making a big jump here and a big assumption, but nobody was knocked out.
Oh, I'm
Yeah, and
sure he
Logan
would have
is
been
not a
destroyed.
professional boxer, but he has been
Yeah.
working really hard and having other matches to build up his credibility so that he can actually enter the world of boxing. Not because he thinks it's fighting is great, but all he has to do is wear shorts and make 30 million.
Make $30 million.
Well, and you have to be someone like Floyd Mayweather to make that kind of money. Like he is the juggernaut in that industry right now. And there's Conor McGregor and a few others out there.
Yeah.
They make that money, but they had to work their way up. And so Logan Paul's just trying to do it like everybody else.
Working his way up. I think Mayweather said something I'm paraphrasing, but basically that this was a legal bank heist.
Yeah.
Because he knew he was just making cash off of this. It was super entertaining. It was entertaining to see who all was there. It was just so funny. But that's what I watched this weekend. It's something I would normally never watch. I had seen Floyd Mayweather fight before because we have friends who do follow boxing. So I saw the McGregor Mayweather fight, which I don't know much about boxing beyond what I learned from my obsession with Rocky as a young child. Obsessed. Had a poster on my wall, but that's my boxing knowledge is Rocky. I don't know that it's 100% current. So I watched that this week and listening to this one sounds weird, but it's Momgoal, like mogul, but it's Momgoal.
Oh, I've listened to that.
It's a podcast.
Yeah.
So good. It's their tag is making moms into moguls. And it's really short. They have great advice from, everything you can imagine. Some of it's fun and fluffy like makeup, and some of it's really serious like career, and the hosts are entertaining. And so I love it. It's one I would definitely add to your list it's perfect for like short bursts of doing chores and stuff around the house, and you can get some mom goal information. So what about you, Suzanne? What are you up to?
Okay. So my look is going to sound like an echo to our previous episodes, because I think you used it as a look once, and I think Lauren Smith Brody a couple of weeks ago had it as a look. But it's been on my nightstand for ages, but Jess Leahy's new The Addiction Inoculation, Raising Healthy Kids in a Culture of Dependence. It's so good. It's so good. And I know that Lauren Smith Brody was saying that she just does a really exquisite job of weaving personal, not personal essay, but personal stories with research. And it really has her voice. It's super fun. Even though there's a lot of research and stuff in it, it has a light Jess voice to it. And
it's a really heavy topic, and somehow you don't feel heavy while you're reading it, but you do. No. You're learning a lot.
I have been learning a lot, and I think I was telling Missy I have not had a glass of wine with dinner since I've been reading this. That's for sure. And it's not even because I'm like, granted, COVID has not been my best place for the amount of bourbon and wine that I've consumed, but this idea of the habit of it. I'm still way at the beginning of it, but I got to a page where they're like, it's more of a habit, a behavior that's become like ritualized. I was like, oh, it has become a ritual.
Yeah.
It's not even that I'm even want a glass of wine. It's that I'm making dinner, so I pour a glass of wine.
And then I get up in the morning, I drive to Starbucks.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with coffee. Yeah. And I don't. And it's one of those things, to not do it was just as easy. I mean, I have a much harder time like not having a cookie or like going past that part of the pantry. But it really was just this decision to like just not have that be the habit. I know that not everybody has that situation where, a habit is probably very easily leads into addiction for some other people. So I'm just being more conscious of that decision and like, am I just doing this because that's what I do when I make dinner, or do I actually want it? And then last night I was like, oh, I am having something that I would like to have a nice Chardonnay with. And so, but that was the decision of like, yeah, this salmon would be really nice with a glass of Chardonnay, and that's going to be the drink I have with my dinner. But it wasn't oh no, I just happened to be boiling water, so it's time to go to the fridge and pop a bottle of wine. So it's just made me more conscious of it, and it's made me think more about how I have those discussions with the kids. And, and about how we do make those decisions, because that it hasn't always been the way. I got to tell you, COVID and Trump made me a 2 glass of wine a night girl.
Definitely.
And it really was, that shouldn't necessarily be the way that I get through tough times. But I mean, holy I mean, it was a tough 16 months there. Well, 4 years plus.
We
4 years.
we are creatures of habit. We
Oh,
are we are mammals of habit. So we are always going to find a habit to employ to deal with stress, whether it is drinking, whether it's exercise, whether it's reading, whether it's yoga. We are going to find a habit and practice to relieve stress. That's just how we are. So finding healthy methods makes the most sense. I told you I was in healthcare for 25 years. One of the things I used to do is admit people for drug and chemical dependency into the hospital for detoxification. And going through that and learning about how the brain works and what makes something addictive versus habit, and why some people struggle to fight addiction, fight their disease, versus those who say, okay, I'm going to quit and quit cold turkey, or, can go through an actual program and successfully go through one time and quit and never touch again.
Yeah.
Addiction versus habit.
Mm-hmm.
When we make it a ritual, a habit is the pathway that leads to addiction. So habit is like the gateway to so many different things, but we are creatures of habit. So the goal is not to get rid of habit. The goal is always to find healthy habits to employ to relieve our stress.
Yes. So I am trying to make those healthier habits and those better decisions. And yes. So,
and the conscious decision part of it, I think, is huge. I think you and I were texting about it. Like, when we are at something social,
I'm having a drink.
I want to have a drink, and I don't have any problem with that. But it's that subconscious decision of, hey, we always have a glass of wine when we watch this show, or we always have a drink with dinner or something. That is the thing I'm trying to be really aware of, and not just.
Yes, definitely. And I have the genetic privilege in the sense that I am not predisposed. We don't have a family history of addiction, and it really is just a habit with me.
Yeah, our family is definitely riddled with addiction of various kinds.
Yeah, so I don't mean to make it sound like it's just an off-on decision for all people, but
right, it's not. No,
it's not.
But yes, so that is an amazing book for anybody, parents, anybody. Addiction Inoculation, Jess Leahy. And then the learning. Oh God, I'm learning all about college coaches.
It's a lot.
Holy cow! All the college coaches that I have been learning about literally cost more than my entire college education. Which, I mean, granted, not every. I went to the University of Idaho back in the 90s, and it was $800 a semester. And these coaches are more than that. And I'm sure that they are very worth it in the sense of getting kids into schools. But I think, Missy, I know you did not that level of coaching, but for some of the essays and that type of thing. And I think there's definitely a price that is worth paying to not be the nag on your kids. And
it's worth every penny.
And to not be, see, here's the other thing. Okay, so we've got Julie Lithcott-Hames coming on in a couple weeks. And I'm going to bring up another book, How to Raise an Adult, by Julie Lithcott-Hames, is all about, and also Jess Leahy that we talked about, the Addiction Inoculation, who had the book The Gift of Failure. It's all about like not being the parent who's calling the admissions office and trying to do all the college process. So I'm almost thinking hiring a coach is worth it, so I don't break every rule in this book, and that I'm not applying for my own college. Like, I can see me trying to own that, and my daughter just being this bystander of like, what just happened? So I'm really trying to, I've been learning about myself and how cheap I am because I don't want to pay for it, but also learning about myself and recognizing that I am going to take over this process and turn it into my college search instead of her college search if I don't have someone that I am paying for their expertise to do that and help with that. So I'm working on it.
It's an extreme privilege to be able to do it. I think we're both really aware of that this is definitely coming from a place of privilege, and there are resources available for less money that can help through this process. But I think
and it makes me mad that I'm perpetuating it.
Well, and if it's available to you and you are able to do it, I do think it takes you out of that middleman role with your kid. And from what I'm hearing from all of my friends who have kids heading off to college, that last 18 months or so is really stressful because your kid is trying to separate. They know they're branching out and doing something new and different, and they're trying to be a grown up, but they're still a kid. And so there's just a lot of push and pull and personalities going on. And so if I can eliminate one area of nagging and I can focus on some other areas of nagging, then maybe that'll help our relationship and help the process be a little less painful. There's a lot of emotion around that. And
yeah. If a college coach can get my kids to bring their cups and bowls downstairs, then I would pay $20 million for that. Oh, but
I thought of
anyway.
you this morning when I had 3 cups on my bedside table. I was like, I'm a teenager.
You
And a coffee and a smoothie and a water.
I'm down to one. I just got my Mom Ann podcast.
There you go.
I waited
All right.
until I was in my 40s to make my bed. Like I rebelled as an adult when I got my own place. I'm never making my bed. Making my bed is stupid. I'm never going to make my bed. And I would say, no, at 38, I started making my bed. So when you're talking about telling them to bring the bowls and stuff downstairs and stuff like I have a housekeeper that does some of that stuff, but like when it comes to like I've always been the person to tell my kids what pick and choose what's important to you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not fighting it. Like we have to have cleanliness because we don't want bugs, but mess. Yep. I'm not fighting over mess. It's your mess. If you want to live in your mess, it's fine. Mess is not the same as dirt. Them 2 cups.
Bugs are not okay though.
No, those 2 cups can sit there. Those 2 cups grow mold. We got a problem. So, we differentiate. Mess.
That's right.
Dirt. No dirt. Mess is okay. You didn't make your bed. I'm not going to kill you.
Well, my son had a cockroach in his room. And he's like, why is that in there? I was like, why would that not be in there? It's like this gorgeous cockroach buffet in there. Why would it? I'm surprised you don't have a family of rats living in here too. I don't know. Why wouldn't?
Mess versus dirt. They're 2 different things.
That's true. That's so true.
It's not dirt. I don't do dirt, but mess.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna decide where to draw our lines. I'm very proud of you for making your bed, though. That's a big step.
I showed it to you right now, right over there. You say, it's made. I'd be so proud.
Mine probably is not because my dogs jump in there and wrestle it if I make it. So.
Oh, no.
the bed we just ordered does not come in until mid-October, but when it comes, we've got like between now and October to teach them not to destroy this gorgeous leather bed that we just bought. So, yeah. I'm going to make that bed. That bed costs more than my college education.
I'm a bed maker for sure.
I'm cheating. Okay. Wait, it's Idaho and the 90s. So in all fairness, does it really count? Like we need to do like, you know how like for like when they're trying to determine like what's the highest grossing movie, they like extrapolate out like, well, yeah, tickets were only $2, but now if those same tickets were sold in 2021 at $10.50, this is how much. Like we need to do that for your college. So like
we do
$800 back then, but if we extrapolate it, your college was like 40 grand.
And because you know, and I'm not dissing on University of Idaho at all. In fact, we were just talking about how great their veterinary school is when we had our brothers on the other night. So yeah, not dissing on them, but I'm talking about whether you go to, you know, a 2-year school or a 4-year school or where you do it or how much it costs. It can be the best school in the world, but if you just are sliding by, you're not going to get anything out of it. If you go to a community college and study and do your best, you're going to get a lot out of it. It's just what you put into it.
I'm going to be really controversial because you first need to decide if you even need to go.
Right.
Yes. No, that I don't find that controversial at all. I find that,
I have so many women who come to me who say, you know, okay, I'm doing this and I'm getting ready. I just finished my PMP certification and now I'm going to go for my master's. And I'm like, why? Who is asking for the master's? Mm-hmm. Show me where. You have whole like Silicon Valley. So your Cisco, your Google in Northern California who helped propel you've got to have a degree to get into the IT tech sciences. And then force people to go to all these expensive schools to get these fancy IT tech degrees. They all just said you don't have to have a degree to work for them. Why'd they say that? Because remember how I said, if you can't sit at their table, you build your own. So people who learned coding online started creating companies and then getting venture capital funding and doing startups and taking business away from the big guys. And they were accepting people who didn't have degrees. And so they said, well, now we need people. We need the people that's going to them because they're helping them advance faster than we are. So maybe we should drop the degree as well. And so I always caution people, I am a fan of education when it makes sense.
Yep.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense. If you're not going to be the doctor, the lawyer, if you're not going to be the architect, I need you, if you're going to build the next spaceship, to have that
please.
degree.
If you were going to operate on my body, I need you to have a degree.
You can have a degree. If you're going to pull my teeth out, I'm going to need you to have that degree. If you were just going to go for your liberal arts degree, or if you're just going to college because that's the thing to do, and you need some form of bachelor education, I would challenge you. You know, I made multiple six figures a year when I left my job. I still don't have a degree.
Yep.
That single parent, poor Black child, teen mom still doesn't have
That's an education.
And I've
right.
Yeah. And I've got so many women from diverse backgrounds who make just as much and more working with me who don't have that education either. So make sure if you're choosing education, you're choosing it for the right reasons and not because you should have a degree.
Yep.
I love it. Just another should. We talk about don't should on yourself.
Yeah. Don't should on yourself.
Don't should on.
Don't let mama say, I always dreamed one day my children would get a degree. No, we're not living mama's life.
See, I just keep telling my kids I want them to go to college so I can visit.
Yeah, like I want you to make a life, not a living. I want you to make a life. I want you to find what fills yourself. And I want you to be able to afford to live not in my house. That's all I'm asking. However you make that happen.
Yes.
I want you to go out into the world and do you. And if that's college, that's college. And if it's not, that's fine.
Yes. Yes.
And if I don't have to pay for college, that's okay too.
Girl, can a church say amen? Now they want all this. Now it's like 30,000. You know, the schools that my son got accepted, my 19-year-old got accepted to, they want 40,000 a year. Who? In what world? What are you going to give him for that education? Well-rounded education. I'm like, he is a 6'3" Black child in America. He is well-rounded. You don't need that. So tell me what you're going to give him that's real education. Yeah. And they're like, well, we're going to teach him about coding. He can learn that online. What value are you giving? And so we have found other schools that are less expensive that give him the value that he needs. But these liberal arts schools, $30,000.
Yeah. Are you going to teach him $40,000 worth of stuff You're not. Nope. You're not. It blows my mind how expensive it is now.
But he'll be well-rounded. What does that mean?
Oh my gosh, this is another discussion too. We need to. Yes. Okay. We're having you back on. Your poor dogs are sitting there waiting for their photo shoot.
I know they've got their makeup on and they're ready to go. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I will come back whenever you want me.
Oh, awesome. Okay. You better not say that because we'll be like next week. Hey,
you don't want to stalk me. You can find me.
Yes,
we will be following you. I'm going to go read every single article. Although all the ones I've read so far, I'm like highlight.
Yes.
So, yes.
I'm like, I need to do that. I need to do that.
Exactly. Oh, well, so excited to finally talk with you and look forward to continuing conversations with you.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Mom and ... podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's show, and if you know someone else who could benefit from the episode, please be sure and share it with them. And while we're begging, please subscribe and rate us wherever it is you listen to podcasts. You can find links to all the things we discussed today in our show notes or over at our website, momandpodcast.com, with the A-N-D spelled out. In between shows, find us over at the socials, including our private Mom and Community Facebook group. The links to that group and all of our socials can be found at momandpodcast.com. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you more than you know. Now go out there and make your ellipses count.